Those 12-year-old boys do not want lipstick on their cheek from their auntie. They really don't.
And they bury your head in their big bosoms, don't they?
Yes.
They've always got big bosoms, these old
yes,
jackies,
there is an element of that. But
why can't we have that luck anymore, gentlemen?
Well, we don't. I was just going to say that. You know, nowadays it'd be wishful thinking, wouldn't it?
Well,
the ones that have got the big bosoms.
On the big bosom, yes, you know.
But what is our conclusion, gentlemen? I think
it's gone too far.
It's gone too far. It's all getting out of hand. All joking apart. You know, men are attracted to the opposite sex. At some point in that process, they've got to let them know that they're attractive. If you get then you walk away with a degree of enthusiasm.
Yeah, and this is why people
you don't pursue it. You know, if you be no means no, that's fine. But you've got to ask the question at some point.
I mean, this is why blokes, I think, don't shut up girls these days, because they're frightened of it, and they don't like rejection, do they? Either that's another thing.
Well, that's a whole different ball game. I mean, you know, we've been dealing with rejection forever, but you know, well, I have.
Well, yeah.
We all, I know. but I mean, you learn to deal with rejection fairly early on. But it's not that, is it? It's you feel as if you can't take a relationship to another level. You know, you need consent. You can't get consent unless you ask. And if you ask, and that's harassment, then you're stuck.
I tell you what, gentlemen, listen. Let's just put this a little bit into context, because I mean, Bob just amazed me. He's sitting there on my right hand side here in the studio, and he said, you know, that young men don't do this and don't do that and all the rest of it. You know. I haven't got a clue how he's got any knowledge of this whatsoever, because he's in his dotage the same as I am. And I mean, you know, young men and young ladies, they are still getting together, they're still having fun, they're still enjoying themselves, and they're still having babies and all that sort of thing, you know. So there's no difference when we were kids.
To some extent, you're right. In another extent, I disagree, because I think there's a much stronger case than when we were kids or younger of blokes going around in gangs, or they have like girls that are just friends. There's no connection with them.
Oh, so going back to the 60s when there was bands and there was things called groupies.
Oh yeah, we've still got those, haven't they?
Well, I don't know whether they have or not. But so that was a different kettle of fish, was it? All these young ladies
I just think men now, or both sexes, are more inclined to stay single longer, and they don't have relationships.
We've got to be really rather careful now, actually, because this business of talking about both sexes and everything else.
We can't.
I've got to bring it up a little later on in the show.
Talking to the mic,
I can't find it just yet, but I will do, because apparently there's scouts now. You know, you're not allowed to. Scout leader's not allowed to say boys and girls and that. You know, because it's going to upset. And there's a school somewhere or another. I mean, this is great. There's a school somewhere or another. Oh, whether it's the girl guys, I think it's the girl guides actually. Yeah, have said that boys who are feministically inclined, if that's the right word, can now actually shower with the girls.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean...
Where's this?
Yes, no, you're not going.
This is the guides or something.
Bob, you're too old to join the guides, you know, but, I mean, it's just got all out of hand. And, I mean, this is the classic, really, here, because an Anglican bishop has provoked backlash by urging Christians to just listen to us, to pray for Prince George to be gay, to make the church more inclusive. Yesterday, the Very Reverend Kelvin Holdsworth extraordinary recommendation was put down as unkind and profoundly unchristian. And in fact, he's bishop. He's the senior Scottish cleric, the provost of St Mary's Cathedral in Glasgow. And he made the comments about George, who's 4 years of age, in a blog, and then repeated them this week as part of the debate in the Church of England and its sister churches over the rights of gay Christians. Provost Holdsworth, who is himself gay, said Christians should pray for the Lord to bless Prince George with a love when he grew up of a fine young gentleman. I mean, that bloke ought to be taken out. In the old days, he'd be taken out and hung, wouldn't he? You know,
hanged.
Well, I don't know if he should be hung. I think that's probably hanged.
He's probably well hung.
But you know, that's neither here nor there. But it's highly inappropriate. Listen, birds and bees is a metaphor for explaining the mechanics of reproduction to young children, relying on imagery of bees pollinating and eggs hatching to substitute for a more technical explanation of sexual intercourse.
The old hat now, isn't it?
Well, that's good.
But you're saying
it's just what amazes me, really, because when you think of it, that apparently man is the only species that enjoys the art of reproduction.
I don't think so.
Sexual intercourse.
You've got to be kidding. Where'd you get that from?
Well, because it's...
Have you ever owned a dog?
Well, because, yeah, but... I mean, it's...
God blimey, I had a Labrador, and I'll tell you what...
No romance, so is there?
It had a drive that went beyond anything human.
Monkeys? What about monkeys?
Well, it would do being a dog.
Pandas? Well, pandas, they can't get in together, can they? This is a bloody trouble, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, but
Going back to your story, Mike, this goes back... You've been on in the past, on previous shows, about the Bible and all the rest of it, about man is to go with women and all the rest of it, to procreation of children and all this. What about a number of vicars, then, that go against the Bible?
Oh, this is true. No,
if that's the case.
There is also a section I think you'll find in the Bible that says that man will be born of man.
Oh, so
now that depends on how you take the word man. Is that humankind or is that man in the male sense?
So it covers itself, is what you're saying.
I think what it's really saying. I think what it's really saying is the Bible is one of those books that can be interpreted in so many different ways. Depending on what your motivation is, you can find a phrase in the Bible to justify just about anything.
Like the Quran, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and the Quran's pretty much the same. I think all books like that have the ability, and that's why they're enduring, because you can discuss them indefinitely. And you know, there's scholars on the Bible, the Quran, and other great works who are, you know, studying and interpreting on a continuous basis for thousands of years. I think it's wonderful.
Mr. Mallyon is very philosophical.
And that's why God is an astronaut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I also believe God may well be an astronaut. You know, I don't necessarily believe these books to be some sort of fictional account of anything.
Stories, aren't they?
They're just not just stories. They give you some good pointers on how to live a reasonable life. You know, thou shalt not kill the bloke next door to you.
Why not?
Well, because it's not a very nice thing to do.
But he's not a very nice bloke.
Yeah, but he only trod on your garden. He only squashed a couple of flowers. You know, that is not worth, you know, topping him for. So I think, yeah, the Bible and the Quran teach good lessons, and I'm sure all the other religious books do the same.
The interesting thing is there's only actually 10 commandments. You know, I mean, why were there only 10? I mean, did it not?
As for days gone by, there'd be somewhat more now.
Well, yeah, there would be harassment. Yeah.
Well, it was a good
Thou
news.
shalt not harass.
Good news and the bad news, wasn't it? When he went up, Moses went up the mountain, he came back, he said, do you want the good news or the bad news? He said, what's the bad? He said, well, I've just made these commandments. He said, what's the good news then? Well, I stuck at 10.
Ah, I see.
That was the thing. I'm a bit concerned about Mr. Barry this morning. I don't think Mr. Barry's very well. Poke your tongue out, Mr. Barry. He's got a white tongue. Look, that's a sign of illness, isn't it?
Oh, thanks very much.
Yes, I think you better go and see the doctor.
Instant diagnosis from Dr. Bob on the Grubby Old Bed Show.
Well, you know, the old tongue is a good indicator of things that are not too good.
Yeah, so women say.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that.
No, they use their tongue.
Oh, don't be disgusting.
I'm mean to talk, man. Talk.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right then. Okay. Listen, 07790385385. 07790385385. I'll say hello to. I'm sure that Linda and Trish are listening.
Yeah, I hope you got your T-shirt, Lee.
Yes, I hope you got a T-shirt.
Yours is on its way, Trish.
We want to see a picture of you in the T-shirts.
Yeah.
Especially if it's just been raining.
Don't you go there.
Oh, all right then. Oh, well, you wanted me to say that, I don't know. So there you go. Now that we decided, or I don't say we decided, because the gang ganged up on me and said that they wanted a new feature on the show discussing the headlines in the newspapers, you know. So
yeah, quite.
So all right then, I'll sit back. I know when I'm beaten. So the first headline is going to come from the Telegraph, I think.
Yeah, well, of course. You know what else? You know, quality newspaper. The price of freedom is the front page this morning of the Telegraph. Divorce bill, this is Brexit, of course, is now up to 39 billion. It is claimed 3 million EU citizens to be allowed to stay in Britain and bring their families, and European Court of Justice to oversee rights of EU citizens until 2029.
Well, first of all, it wasn't so long ago when it was 50 billion, so that's an absolute winner. If that is indeed the case, so we're £11 billion up.
I'm sorry. Can I just challenge that? Right, if I go down to the local supermarket and come home saying, "Oh, I tell you what, I've seen a packet of cornflakes for £1. And then I see the same packet of cornflakes in the corner shop for £1.50. And then I go back to the supermarket and buy these ones for £1 and come home and say, look, I've made 50p. That's what that story's all about. It's so silly. They put a big figure up, they knock a bit off it, and then say how well we've done. Okay, because they've learned from experience that by putting a small figure up and then adding to it is a negative, whereas actually a big figure, reducing it is a positive. It's simple politics.
Yeah, I was looking at there was an add-on for Morrison's this morning. If you spend £50 in their shop, you get 10p a litre off fuel. Well, they've got to be clawing that back somewhere, haven't they, down the line?
Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch, is there?
Well, there is actually. There is. Well, Terry was saying yesterday, wasn't he, about free online magazines and all this sort of stuff. We haven't got to pay for a lot of stuff online now. Although the newspapers are getting wise to this, aren't they? Because they are charging now.
Yeah, but you pay for it. You pay for it in the long run, because in the long run, the advertisers that sponsor this, have to charge that money for their goods, and you pay for it. It's not free.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as free parking. There's no such thing as, somebody has to pay. It's subsidised. Nothing's free.
This is true.
Anyway, even volunteers, there is a cost. The cost is to the volunteer.
You're going off track a little bit.
I'm really rather intrigued by this, because the headlines there about it's money and all the rest of it.
The price of freedom.
The Brexit talks. I mean, the Ireland sort of started sticking their oar in about the borders.
They're saying there's no hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. I think that's pretty well decided now.
Well, that's it. But there's two things here, really. One is the fact that Southern Ireland hasn't got a veto on this within the EU, so they can jump up and down and do all the rest that they like, but it won't make any difference. But there was a very pertinent remark made by, I think it was Mr. Jenkins, one of the MPs, on the Today programme on Radio 4 in the week, because he was being quizzed about why Britain doesn't do this and why Britain doesn't do that. And he said to the interviewer, look, hang on a minute, this is really, you should have the EU people here in the studio and be quizzing them, because the thing is, we are leaving the EU. The EU are putting all these things up where they're saying, we can't do this, can't do that, and everything else. But at the end of the day, we are going. So you should ask the EU what they're up to, and what they're going to do. And funnily enough, I don't know, obviously nobody from the EU was listening, but it's all suddenly changed, because now they're going to start talking about trade. And at the end of the day, we're going to leave the EU, so whatever happens, it's down to the other side to come back to us and say, right, okay, we know you're going to leave, but we want to talk to you about how we can both work together. So, headlines.
This is, they can't agree, can they? This is the thing. The UK to remain in the single market and customs union until at least 2021. These are all the preliminary trade talks will now begin, and nothing is agreed until everything is agreed.
Well, this lovely statement that is, and they're talking about now. I think that's Article 14 or something in it. Because they're talking about all these different articles in it, and I think it's 14, but there is, as I say, one of those things that nothing is agreed until it is all agreed. But at the end of the day, and this is another interesting point, it isn't the politicians that are doing all the talking. I mean, Theresa May standing up and saying, we did this and did that, but it's the civil service negotiators that are sitting down and talking to each other, and they're twisting words around. They're using words that will be acceptable to the other side, on both sides, obviously.
Do you think we're not very good at negotiating as a nation? Do you think we've ever been very good at negotiating?
I think there's probably, it's the old barter system, isn't it? When we go abroad and we want to buy a souvenir, the guy says, that's €25. So
most people cough up, don't they?
Yeah, pay the €25, and the American or the foreigner beside them says, I'm paying 25, I'll give you 5, and the guy says, that's okay.
Don't you do that?
Yeah. I tried it once,
I do it, yeah.
The only time I ever got away with it actually was in a market in St Albans, and there was a nice fancy mirror there, which I thought would do well for my daughter's Christmas present. And I said to the guy, how much is it? He said, it's £25. So I opened my wallet and I said, I've only got 20 quid.
Because you didn't have the rest in his pocket?
Yeah. And the bloke said, "Oh, well, all right, give me 20 quid."
Well, that's right. But you see, the lesson is people say you should negotiate everywhere. I mean, when you buy a car, you negotiate. I went into John Lewis's when I bought a computer, and I said, "How much will I get off that then?" They said, "Well, that's the price." I said, "No, come on, you could do better than that." And he said, "No, we